Hi! Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Teacher Josa. Miss Josa Margaret Alor Francisco, your teacher for the subject Introduction to the Philosophy of the Human Person. Happy Thursday, everyone. Please prepare yourself, drink water, inhale, exhale, and focus sa ating discussion. Okay? So, lesson 12 to 13. Last meeting, our topic is about methods of philosophizing. We have 4 methods of philosophizing. First is the Socratic method. Second is the methods of doubt. Third is the scientific method. And fourth is the historical method. Okay, we also differentiate inductive and deductive reasoning and argument. All right, so can you name this fallacy? It is ridiculous to have spent 100,000 to rescue animals trapped in hidden place. Why look at all people trapped in jobs they don't like? No? Next is water fluoridization affects the brain citywide. Students' test scores began to drop 5 months after fluoridation began. 3. I know 3 redheads who have terrible tempers, and since Lisa has red hair, I'll bet she has a terrible temper too. We need to stop the tuition increase. The next thing we'll know, they'll be charging 50,000 a semester. 5. I'm positive that my work will meet your requirements. I really need the job since my grandmother is sick. All right. So our topic for today is about different types of fallacy. So our content standard, the learner demonstrate various ways of doing philosophy. Performance standard, the learner evaluate opinions. Most essential learning competency is realize that the methods of philosophy lead to wisdom and truth. For our objectives, analyze different types of fallacy using the information table. Realize the importance of understanding by answering the guide questions. And write own example of fallacies using speech balloon. So let's start. When we say fallacy, it comes from Latin term faller, which means to deceive. False argument that has the appearance of truth. So that is fallacy. When we say sophism, it's fallacy committed with the intention to deceive or mislead an opponent. That is sophism. Okay? Next is paralogism. It's a fallacy employed unknowingly or through the ignorance of the rules of correct reasoning. So again, key term for sophism is this is intended or intentional. Paralogism, you are not conscious or you do not know the rules or you are parang because of your ignorance of the rules of correct reasoning, no? Hindi mo naman alam na nakukommit mo na pala. That is paralogism. This one is sophism. Okay? Next. We have formal fallacies, errors that are committed due to lack of skills in reasoning, and this is turned due to lack in training in logical process. So formal fallacies is due to lack of training. Okay? Next is informal fallacies naman. Key term here, errors committed when either irrelevant psychological factors are allowed the reasoning process through the use of examples of pity, threat, or when one is confused by linguistic ambiguities in one's premise or conclusions. For formal, training. For informal, irrelevant psychological factors, pity, threat, and confused by linguistic ambiguities. So that is informal fallacies. All right. So we have 3 categories of fallacy. First is the fallacies of insufficient evidences. Under this category ay mga fallacy na walang malinaw o klarong ebidensya. So first is fallacy of hasty generalization, an inference drawn from insufficient evidence. Insufficient evidence. So for example, it is warmer this year in Vegas compared last year, therefore global warming is rapidly accelerating. So here, we generalize na ang global warming ay nag-accelerate dahil lang sa isang specific scenario. Next is, all those movie stars are really rude. I asked Daniel Padilla for his autograph in a restaurant once, and he told me to get lost. So for just one encounter with a movie star like Daniel Padilla, ang kanyang generalization is, all those movie stars are really rude, no? Other example is, isang teacher lang ang hindi magturo, the rest na nung buong school ay hindi magaling magturo. So that is fallacy of hasty generalization, or isang estudyante yung natutulog in online class, sabi ni teacher na buong section ay pasaway. So that is fallacy of hasty generalization, insufficient evidences. Next is fallacy of assumption without proof. So we draw conclusions not warranted by evidences. Okay? So first is accident. Women earn less than men for doing the same work. Oprah Winfrey is a woman, therefore Oprah Winfrey earns less than male talk show hosts. No? So we draw conclusion naman here without not warranted by evidences na ganun lahat ng babae. Ganun nga. While converse accident, Dennis Rodman wears earrings and is an excellent rebounder. Therefore, people who wear earrings are excellent rebounders. So here, nauna naman yung specific scenario bago tayo mag-draw ng conclusion. Okay? Yun, no? So, wag kayong malilito sa hasty generalization because this is an inference. An inference. And usually, pag fallacy of hasty generalization, lagi siya madalas all. No? Makikita niyo yung mga examples. You can read other references if you want to know a lot of examples, no? So, while for fallacy of assumption without proof, so ay case-to-case basis. And then here, conclusion naman. We draw conclusion not warranted by evidences. Okay? Next, fallacy of false or misleading premises. False dichotomy. So the arguer set up the situation so that it looks as though there are only two choices. When the arguer eliminates one of choices, it appears that there's only one option left. So misleading premise. So I can't find my book. It was either stolen or I never had. I know I had it. Therefore, it must have stolen. See? So you have your two options na either stolen or you never had it. No? Sure ka na hawak mo yun and then you conclude na it must have been stolen. So that is false dichotomy. Okay? Nakaka-relate ba dito? Lalo yung mga nabibintang or napagbintangan na. Next is under fallacy pa rin, a false or misleading premise is the Stroman Fallacy, an argument in which an opponent's position is represented as being more extreme than is actually is. Or for some references, it's distorting or misrepresenting someone's argument in order to make easier to defeat. So for example, Lana feels that all companies are irresponsible and should be punished for allowing emissions, which causes global warming. Grabe, no? Should be punished, blah, blah, blah. Another example, person A, the school lunch budget must be examined to cut out waste. Person B, this guy wants to starve our children. So see, he distorts or misrepresents person A's argument in order to defeat or para pabulaanan o para maging against yung mga tao na ikinig sa kanya. Iba yung sinasabi. Extreme yung sinasabi. Stroman, hinihigop, no? Same with Lana na all companies are irresponsible. So, lahat ay ipanish. Pahirapan, no? Gets? So, that is Stroman fallacy. Next is begging the question. It occurs when an argument premise assume that truth of conclusion. It is also known as arguing in a circle. So for begging the question, here, diretso ka na agad sa conclusion. No? Best example dito, prosecutor the defendant. So, how did you feel when you killed your wife? Diba? Diretso na agad sa conclusion na pinatay nga niya yung wife, no? Nang wala pang mga questions about killing ng kanyang asawa. Diretso agad sa tanong na, kamusta ang pakiramdam after mong patayin yung asawa mo? Okay? So that is begging the question. Okay, I want you to write real life example per example of fallacy. Okay? Next is, under fallacy pa rin of misleading premise is the equivocation. It's letter D, I think. Class na itong under misleading or false premises. This fallacy uses a word with two different meanings. The sign said, fine for parking here. So since it was fine, I parked here. So see? Ang meaning dito ng fine kasi is yung may multa. Diba? But ang kanyang interpretation is, kaya siya nag-park doon. Diba? So that's equivocation. We use word with two different meanings. Okay, I want you to write real life example of that. Next is fallacies of relevance. So this is the next category. Kanina ay insufficient evidence. This time, fallacies of relevance. Okay? Fallacy. Ad verecundiam, the appeal to inappropriate authority. Insisting that a claim is true simply because of valid authority or experts on the issue said it was true without any other supporting evidence offered. So Richard Dawkins, an evolutionary biologist and perhaps the foremost expert in the field, says that evolution is true. Therefore, it's true. So for ad verecundiam, we use authority, experts, no, na nagsasabi na totoo yun, no? So, nagko-conclude agad tayo without any other supporting evidences. Okay, sabi ng nanay ko ito daw yung dapat gawin eh. Well, according ma'am to my grade 4 teacher, this is the right thing, blah, 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 the right information. So without seeking or looking for other supporting evidences. Okay? So that is argumentum ad verecundiam. Okay? Next. Fallacy, argumentum ad baculum, the appeal to force. When we say appeal to force, committed when one appeals to force or threat of force to bring about the acceptance of a conclusion. Chairman of the board, all those opposed to my arguments for the opening of a new department, signify by saying, I resign. See? Appeal to force. Threat na if you're going to oppose his argument, no? You're going to signify and say na nagre-resign ka na. So, force or threat. No? Pag di ka sumunod, papatay kita. Kapag di ka nagbagong adik ka, patay ka. So, that is the appeal to force. Ad baculum. Next is ad misericordiam, cordiam, the appeal to pity. So it seeks to fool the hearer to transfer their feelings of sympathy and empathy for a person's and to the person's argument or conclusions. No, we call it yung mga paawa. No, I'm a widow in poor health, and of all children were drafted, sent to a war, and killed. I would not able to cope. I know the exam graded based on performance, but you should give me an A. My cat has been sick, my car broke down, and I've had a cold. So it was really hard for me to study. No? So this is appeal to PT. Na kailangan bigyan mo siya ng A. Kasi may sakit yung ano niya, yung car niya nasira, nagkaroon siya ng cold, and it's really hard for him or her to study. So, transfer feelings, sympathy to argument, person's argument, or conclusions. Okay? So, invalid. No? Ginagamitan ng emosyon para manalo sa isang argument. Okay? Another example siguro dito yung mga competitions na instead na skills talaga in singing, ang ginagamit ay yung story nila na sobrang hirap nila, etc. No? Pero to clarify everything, no, may mga iba naman na mahirap talaga pero may skills. Talagang magaling kumanta. Ang sinasabi lang ni ma'am, walang talent sa pagkanta, gusto manalo, ginamit yung kanyang situation. That is the appeal to PT. Gets? Gets? Okay. I hope you understand. Next is argumentum ad populum, the appeal to popular sentiment, the fallacy of attempting to induce acceptance of an unexamined or unproved conclusion by arousing the feelings, prejudices, or interests of political party, mob, or any large group of people. You should fly a Philippine flag off your porch. It's the patriotic thing to do. Why should you feel guilty for seeking your own happiness when that's one everyone else is doing too? See? Ginagawa naman ng lahat, gawin mo rin. No? Gawin mo rin kasi patriotic yun eh. 'Di ba? So, interests any large group of people. The appeal to popular sentiment. So here, I am encouraging you to read a lot of articles, analyze the situations, have holistic perspective and different point of views, read a lot of references, legit references bago ka sumang-ayon sa isang grupo. Kasi nangyayari, dahil ginagawa ng karamihan, gawin mo na rin, no? That is the appeal to popular sentiment. Next is ad hominem. Okay. The argument against the person, also known as argument against the man. It's unfairly attacking a person instead of issue. Don't believe what Liana says about social issues. She's dropped out of college. Grabe, di ba? So, ad hominem lagi actually yung nakocommit ng mga tao eh. Kasi it's argument against the person. Instead na yung argument yung pag-usapan, ina-attack yung people. So first is abusive, the appeal to personality or poisoning the well fallacy. So when we say poisoning the well, to commit a preemptive ad hominem attack against an opponent, that is to prime the audience with adverse information about the opponent in an attempt to make your claim more acceptable or discount the credibility of your opponent's claim. Tina, boss, you hear my side of story why I think Lena should be fired and not me. Now I am sure she is going to come to you with pathetic attempt to whistle out this lie that she's created. No? Paninirang puri since yung taong kausap mo hindi pa naririnig or nakikita or kilala yung taong ito. No? For example, classmate to, "Uy, alam mo ba, yang si ma'am, ganito yan, blah, 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 blah." Okay, poisoning the well. Okay, bago pa may makainom dun sa well, okay, nilalagyan mo na ng lason para pagdating ng taong yon meron na siyang ideya, "Ay, ganito yan, iiwasan ko 'to, mayabang yan, masamang tao daw yan," sabi nito. So that is poisoning the well. Example lang 'no, before Vice President Leni Robredo mangampanya 'no. So bago pa yon gagawin agad ng mga against sa kanya, sisiraan na siya. Ganito yan, blah, 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 blah. So pagtakbo niya, wala na, sira na siya. So that is poisoning the well. Instead of analyzing the argument or pag-usapan yung argument, himay-himayin, yung tao yung sisiraan. Okay? Sige. Next is circumstantial argument against the person. Arguer's circumstances, situation, or motives. Dito, the appeal to personality or you poison the well, here naman yung circumstances ng tao. So, I believe murderer should die for the sake of victim's family. Diba? So, kailangan mamatay para sa pamilya. Diba? Or any other circumstance actually. Next is to koke or to you-to argument applies concept of look who's talking and used to turn criticism against other people. You should not have that second piece of cake. It's so fattening. Didn't you eat an entire tub of ice cream yesterday? So, sabi ni Bogart, "Uy, ano Berto, bungal ka." Ikaw nga, panot eh. So, you-to argument. Okay? Instead na yung argument ulit, sila yung inaatake nila. So again, under ad hominem, we have poisoning the well, circumstantial against person, and you-to argument. Okay? Okay. Next is, ito yung kanina. Mas pinalaking version. Okay. Next is genetic fallacy. Genetic fallacy, this involves acceptance of or rejection of concepts based on their source, not their merit. My best friend says, "You're a liar, so I'm not going to talk to you." So you accept or you reject concepts based on their source, hindi yung merit ng source natin. So since best friend mo yung nagsabi, hindi ka maniniwala. Best friend mo yun eh. No? Without even analyzing or doing some investigation kung gaano katotoo yung sinasabi ng best friend mo. So that is genetic fallacy. Okay? Please, use your own mind. Dare to use your own reasoning. No? Next is argumentum ad ignorantiam. So appeal to ignorance. This fallacy, a proposition is true simply on basis that it has not been proved false or that it is false because it has not been proved true. Ignorance. So here's example. Since the class has no questions concerning the topics discussed in class, the class is ready for a test. No? So, basis that it has not been proved false because it has not been proved true. So, wala namang nagtatanong. So, ready na kayo sa test. People have been trying for centuries to prove that God exists, but no one has yet been able to prove it. Therefore, God does not exist. So, that is a fallacy. Ad ignorantiam. Kahit hindi mo alam, even though wala kang pruweba, hindi ka pwedeng mag-conclude. Because that is appeal to ignorance. You need to read a lot of references, legitimate references, analyze everything, talk to experts, and etc. before you conclude that God does not exist. Okay? Okay. Exist or not exist. Next is petitio principii, begging questions. The opinion to be proven is given as if it's were already proved. Okay, yung kanina rin to, no? Global warming does not exist because the Earth is not getting warmer. Actually, parang nasa isang ano rin siya, no? So, dalawa yung category niya. So, when you beg the questions, naniwala ka na agad sa opinion or dun sa conclusion. Okay? Next, complex question. So here, it also known as loaded question. This fallacy involves posing a questions in such a way that by either affirming or denying, it implies agreeing to someone controversial in a question. Have you stopped beating your wife? If you answer no, it implies that you continue to beat your wife. If you answer yes, you admit that you did it before. See? Complex question. Kasi if you answer no, na you stop beating your wife, it implies you continue to beat your wife. No? Tumigil ka na ba? Hindi. O, ibig sabihin, inaano mo siya before. Ginugulpi mo siya. If you answer yes, you admit that you did it before. Oh, grabe, di ba? So that is complex question. Okay, kaya pa? Kaya pa. Next is false cause divided into two, post hoc fallacy or ego prompter hoc or simple correlation. So cite for post hoc fallacy, sige, lagyan natin ng hati para clear sa atin dyan. For post hoc fallacy, citing a false or remote cause to explain a situation. So, false cause. The increase of global warming in the past decade is because more teenagers are using hairspray. False cause. Diba? No data. Next is simple correlation. Assuming that because two things happen, the first one causes the second one. So every time my brother Bill uses hairspray, it is on extreme hot day. Grabe, no? If I wore my lucky red shirt, I took the test so that I probably why I did so well. Diba? We correlate na related yon kaya natin ginagawa, no? Oh, mag-iingat din sa mga ganyan, no? Lalo na if not connected. Because that is simple correlation, a fallacy. Next is ignoratium and elinchi. So, fallacy of irrelevant conclusion this time. Red herring fallacy. Ito, favorite ko tong red herring fallacy. So, presenting an argument unrelated to subject in order to distract the reader. So, we have two examples. In order to really look at the problem of global warming, we must first consider how the homeless suffer when it is cold. Diba? So the subject is global warming, but you want to solve it, to solve yung homeless people, no? Red herring is a type of fish, red, na for example, nag-uusap tayong dalawa and yung kausap mo nakakita ng red herring, nadidistract siya. Yun yung nakikita niya instead na ikaw. That's why we called it red herring. Distraction. Not related yung sinasabi mo ngayon dun sa pinag-uusapan. Okay? Alright. So, grading this exam on curve would be the most fair thing to do. After all, classes go more smoothly when students and the professor are getting along well. Oh, grabe, di ba? So, the first subject is grade, pero ang inaano mo ay yung getting along well. Di ba? For example, we request na magkaroon na ng, for example, ng building o ng isang location, no? Tapos ang sinabi sa'yo ng kausap mo, "Uy, ano, kailangan pala mag-alaga tayo ng mga ibon, kalabaw, etc." So, that is distraction or not related. Red herring. Iniiba ang usapan. Red herring. Next is slippery slope. Ito, madalas na nagagawa ng ating mga nanay. Implying that one small step in the wrong direction will cause catastrophic result. So we have a lot of examples here na I'm sure makaka-relate kayo. If we use one more can of hairspray this month, as we know, it will no longer exist. If Supreme Court allows abortion, next thing you know, they allow euthanasia, and it won't be long before the society dispose all those persons whom it deem undesirable. Agad-agad. If you do poorly in Miss Minchin's class, you will start doing poorly in other classes too. The first thing you know, you'll end up probation, and then you will kick out of college without a college degree. You won't get a good job, and you'll starve death. That is a slippery slope, no? 'Pag nag-boyfriend ka, mabubuntis ka kaagad. 'Pag nabuntis ka kaagad, magiging 5 anak niyo. 'Pag 5 anak niyo, magugutom ka. 'Pag nagutom ka, mamamatay ka. So, that is a slippery slope. Okay? So, 'yan yung kadalasang naco-commit ng mga natin 'no, ng parents natin. Next is false analogy. Making inference based on analogy that is too different from argument. Guns are like hammers. They both tools with metal part that could be used to kill someone, and yet it would be ridiculous to restrict the purchase of hammers. So restriction on purchasing guns are equally ridiculous. Grabe, no? False analogy. So, kinompare na yung gun sa hammer, which is magkaiba naman. 'Di ba? Sinasabi niya equally ridiculous. So, false analogy. I want you to write real life example na mali, sablay talaga yung analogy. Next is, so we have the third category, the fallacy of ambiguity. Ambiguity. Okay? So, fallacy of accent. These are based on the stress or emphasis of word or word parts is unclear. Okay, depending on which word is stressed in sentence, I did not take the test yesterday has several meanings such as someone else took the test or I took it another day. Okay. Yung kaninang example ay one word, different meaning. Here, in fallacy of accent, depende sa stress ng sentence. Okay? I did not take exam yesterday. So, pwedeng hindi mo kinuha yung exam, hindi ikaw nag-exam, or iba nag-exam. That is fallacy of accent. Next is fallacy of ambiguity, syntactic ambiguity. So it occurs because ambiguity arises due to grammar or syntax error. It occurs when syntactic ambiguity allows one meaning to be used in premise and another meaning to be used in conclusion. Okay? Here, I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How he got into my pajamas, I don't know. Ang gulo, di ba? So, ayan. Next is fallacy of composition. It arises when somebody infers that something applies to the whole because it is true part of the whole. Subatomic particles are lifeless, therefore anything made out of them is lifeless. Okay. Composition. Part of whole. No? Mga different tendencies of fallacy of sa hasty generalization. For the hasty generalization, isang example, generalize na. Here, in fallacy of composition, part siya, for example, subatomic particles are lifeless. No? So, lahat ng merong subatomic particle ay lifeless. Okay? So, part. Okay? Applies to the whole because true part of the whole. Part kanon. Okay? Sige. I hope you understand. Next, fallacy of division. A person reasons that what is true for the whole must also be true for the parts. Okay? The person fails to justify that inference with the required evidence. So, here, the ocean, when seen as a whole, is blue in color, then each drop of water individually must be also color in blue. Grabe, no? Division. So, okay yung kabuuan, so dapat isa-isa. No? Fallacy of division. Magaling ang mga Marisay students. Dapat bawat estudyante dyan, mataas ang grade. No? Kabuuan, tapos individual. No? Kahit na hindi naman, no? Nakalagay dito, the water individually must be also be blue in color. So, woohoo! Congratulations! We're done discussing different type of fallacy, 3 categories, and a lot of fallacy. So, your learning activity for today is to write real-life example of those fallacy. Okay? And then, for the second day, which is Friday, you need to select one type of fallacy per category. We have insufficient evidence, relevance, and ambiguity. For each category, I want you to give examples using speech balloon. Okay? So, fallacy number 1, fallacy number 2, and fallacy number 3 for Friday. So, thank you so much for listening. And I am allowing you to read a lot of references, to see different example, to see different explanations. Kasi we don't have soul or nag-iisang reference lang in Philo. Kailangan talaga dito maraming references. Okay? So, thank you so much for listening. God bless us all.